Welcome to the most must-see podcast in pro wrestling history. Welcome to Mark's Side of the Ring. Our views, our predictions, our opinions, spoiler-free on all things AEW and WWE. I am your main Mark, Miguel Minetti, and alongside, we got the three-man band back, baby! Nick Fiorentino in the house and Fred DeCourt. What's going on, boys?
What's happening? Glad to be here. Glad to see Nick back finally. Didn't think we were going to get him back again.
Nick, thanks so much for gracing us with your presence. I know you're a busy man. You've been out and about the last few weeks, but the fans have been clamoring for you to be back, and now you're here live in the flesh. Thank you, sir, for joining us today.
I don't know about fans, but I appreciate you guys tuning in to the show each and every week, whether I'm on it or not, and we appreciate you guys watching. And, let's talk some wrestling.
We're going to talk some wrestling indeed. We got some really cool topics, some jam-packed topics to talk about. A lot of cool stuff happening over the weekend, so we're going to kind of just jump right on into things. And we're going to kick it off with the Ultimate Warrior documentary that took place on A&E this past Sunday, as Fred does his best Ultimate Warrior impression over there. Ultimate Warrior show took place this past Sunday on A&E, and it was a pretty good, actually, if not maybe one of the best documentaries out of all the A&E specials that have aired since the beginning with the Stone Cold episode. And we could kind of break down the entire show, so to speak. But I think the biggest thing that we wanted to talk about is just the emphasis of how important the Ultimate Warrior character was in pro wrestling. So, Nick, I'll ask you first. What do you think overall of the documentary? Do you think this was probably the best one out of all of them so far?
Yeah, it's been my favorite so far. I probably would rank them, and if you follow us on Twitter at Mark's Side of the Ring, I kind of posted a couple days ago. I thought it was the best one so far. I also like the Booker T one, the Roddy Piper one. Then they start to go a little downhill. I like Stone Cold Steve Austin, the wrestler, but I felt like I didn't learn anything from that documentary. It was just, there for people who are casual fans or nostalgia fans that don't tune in every single week or have as a book or anything else that I have. And the Shawn Michaels one, I was a little disappointed in just because I felt like for Shawn Michaels, I feel like The Last Dance with Michael Jordan was kind of the start of all this stuff with documentaries, and his was like an 8-part. And I feel like for Shawn Michaels' documentary to be legitimate, it probably should have been 8 parts too. I mean, they covered the reconciliation with Bret Hart in about 35 seconds. I mean, it's just impossible to do his documentary in just 2 hours. And then, some of the documentary was taped footage from his DVD documentary that came out a while back, which I own. So nothing new there. And I already mentioned 2 or 3 weeks ago, whenever I was on last, what I thought about the Macho Man's just being a hit job. So, yeah, I mean, to answer your question, The Ultimate Warriors was my favorite. He's my favorite wrestler growing up. As a kid, he was probably my first favorite wrestler. I'll never forget July 11th, 1992, the first wrestling event I ever went to at the Meadowlands. The main event saw him beating Papa Shango with the big splash. And I don't remember every aspect of the card, but I remember him hitting the splash in the 1, 2, 3. And I remember jumping out of my seat like the Mets just won the World Series or the Eagles won the Super Bowl again. And, it's one of those things I'll never forget. So, I was a fan right from there. And that was kind of my start of my fandom. So the Ultimate Warrior holds a special place in my heart.
Bro, what do you think of the documentary? Do you think it's probably the best out of all of them so far?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, as far as topics, like Stone Cold and Shawn Michaels were my 2 favorite ones that they've covered. Those are my 2 of my favorite stars of all time. So I was very invested in those 2. Not that I wasn't in the other ones, but I do think that the Ultimate Warrior one probably was the best one because it told the truth. It didn't, shy away from any of his controversial subjects, which I know Conrad Thompson thought that they would because his wife works for WWE. There's the Warrior Award. Right. And unlike the Macho Man's, this one wouldn't be. This would be a fluff piece. And it wasn't. It wasn't a hit job, I don't think, either, but it was. But they didn't shy away from the truth. So I think as far as being truly transparent, but not making it look like they're taking a shot at him, which they did 17 years ago, I think well, maybe not my favorite star that they covered because he was before my time, even though I am a big fan of the Ultimate Warrior and the character and everything. But I think as far as the documentary is concerned, it's probably the best one they've done.
How do you guys think this is going to compare to? So we're taping this on Wednesday, and I know it drops on Saturday, but tomorrow night is Ultimate Warrior's Dark Side of the Ring. So how do you think this is going to compare to that?
I think it's going to hurt it a little bit because I think people, if it was a fluff piece and they didn't talk about any of the controversial things, then Dark Side of the Ring would have something to stand on. But being that they didn't, I mean, what can they possibly give you that wasn't covered on Sunday?
It seemed like, not to cut you off, but it seemed like, if I just based on the preview for the Dark Side of the Ring, it almost looked like they were going to cover his first marriage. I guess something happened with this first marriage that I don't know a lot about. And honestly, the one thing that they can do that the AE, I feel like we're going to continue to either say Mark Side of the Ring when we're talking Dark Side of the Ring, or AE when we're talking about A&E. But anyway, the one thing that the A&E documentary didn't cover that, they certainly could, is his WCW run, and what a terrible, turn of events, whether it be the ultra long promo with Hogan and Bischoff in the ring, or, the flame, whatever the hell that was at the end of the pay-per-view. So they can go in a lot of different directions. I personally have been going back and forth on whether or not I even want to watch it. I mean, I feel like there's nothing new that I'm going to learn about the Ultimate Warrior that I didn't already know. And I like the A&E documentaries because I think that it's been a lot of Vince and some stuff that we haven't seen before. Vince really being the focal point. We know that in the past he doesn't want to be the focal point, or doesn't want to be really in the limelight.
Right.
But the stuff with him about, I couldn't wait to fire the Ultimate Warrior, and what he wrote in the letter and stuff, I mean, that's cool coming from him. And I think that just the overall documentary, whether it be his daughter kind of running the intro, talking about the good and the bad to tell the full
I thought
Warrior
that was very well done.
I thought that was cool. I didn't know that his daughters were training to be a boxer and, all that kind of stuff. And I the one story I didn't know about, and I'm glad, Fred, maybe you'll talk about it a little bit later on the show, but I'm glad you weren't the little fan that the Ultimate Warrior yelled at the airport, because I know that you met him at the airport, but I did not know that story.
I didn't either.
I thought it was super cool that they showed like the outtakes of his trying to do that apology and how pissed he was getting. And I just overall, I like the documentaries where I learned something.
Yeah.
Mix that in with the fact that he was my favorite wrestler as a kid growing up. I give it 2 thumbs up. I think it was great. I think the Mick Foley one this weekend could trump it just because of all the cool stuff that they can go over. But Warrior's in the lead for me.
I think one of the things I noticed, and especially with that promo, right, where he had to do like 30 takes, is the guy was like, clearly, he must be one of the most intense human beings to ever live, right? Did you notice that he was so much in character when he was doing the promos that he was literally like, it looked exhausted, right, when the camera would cut, right, or would cut to do the next take? He just looked like somebody that just, I don't know, maybe he lived the character or believed in that character.
Yeah,
so much
he did.
Balls to the wall on it there, right?
Well, we know he did. He changed his name to Warrior.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know, did they mention it in the documentary about some guys can't separate, their character from the real person? Did they didn't somebody say that in the documentary? No? I
feel like they did. They definitely did that in the burial documentary that they did.
Right.
I don't remember. They might have nonchalantly said it or something. I know that they did steal some clips from that.
Well, I thought it was cool that they actually showed actual footage from the documentary.
Yeah.
On there, like I was unsure if they were going to go over that. I really wasn't sure. And I thought it was cool that they did, and in detail too. I mean, there was nothing about that documentary that I don't think was fantastic.
Did you guys? Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But did you catch when the producer asked Vince, "Did you think of the Ultimate Warrior as a son?" And he was like, "Well, I only have one son." Like, is that a dig at Warrior, or was it just basically saying Shane's my only son?
No, I don't think it was a dig, but basically saying like, no, I didn't view him as a son. I have a son, but I can see how I'm a father figure, and
I don't know. It just sounded strange because I thought I've heard him say before I considered him like a son to me. About I don't know which wrestler in particular, like maybe Shawn Michaels or what have you. But hasn't he said that about other wrestlers before?
Triple H, but he is his son-in-law.
Triple H, yeah, of course.
I feel like his comments about the son thing are taken out of context. I mean, he kind of doubled down on what he said, or at least kind of vindicated what he said when he first said that, no, I only have one son. But then he said, I think there's a lot of wrestlers who look at me as like a father-son figure, and, you know.
Which makes sense. Brett did.
It sounded like he felt that dynamic too, but to necessarily say, did you consider him a son, I think is more of like a black and white, like, do you consider him to be like a son? And no, I don't think it's a dig to him. Why would he consider the Ultimate Warrior to be a son to him? The Ultimate Warrior kind of dicked him over multiple times, and, you know, Vince didn't have to take him back all those times that he did, and he still did. So I don't think he owes him anything.
What I found interesting was how close that they were at that one point, though.
Yeah.
You know, like he would just come over for dinner. And, you know, Shane said not a lot of people did that. And he was, so you wouldn't get the feeling that they were so close, you know, prior to any issues that they had. So I thought that was really cool.
How about real quick, how about when they are interviewing Shane and it just says Shane McMahon, friend? Like,
I know. Like, oh, he's just a friend.
Like, we don't know that it's Shane McMahon.
You say I'm just a friend.
That was kind of funny to me. It made me laugh.
Did you guys pick up on when Hogan was talking about their match at WrestleMania 6, and he said, well, when everyone was looking at me leaving the ring, I'm like, oh, is Hogan going into business for himself? Like,
yeah.
On that?
I feel like that was said during the that was a clip that was taken from the
that was from the self-destruction.
Job? Oh, okay. I thought it was a recent one. I'm like, damn.
Yeah,
Hogan's going into business for himself.
Yeah, no. Did they have any Hogan interviews, like current ones?
Wait, Hogan? Current Hogan ones? I don't think so.
No, right? I was surprised about that.
Yeah, now that I think about it, it was probably all from the Hit Job movie, the Destruction video.
Yeah.
You know what else was interesting, too, that I picked up on? And I kind of got this from, I'm not going to lie, I got to give credit to Busted Open because they touched on this, too, but I was thinking it. They didn't have a lot of wrestlers on. Did you notice who was on this documentary?
Yeah.
It was Paul Heyman. He was a good friend of the show, former guest, Peter Rosenberg.
Right.
Sam Roberts. And Eric Bischoff. Was he the other one? There was
I don't think Bischoff was Bischoff on?
Vince Russo. Like, did they ever work together?
Like briefly in '96.
They popped Vince Russo in a few times. It was kind of weird.
But Russo wasn't there during Warrior's original run. I thought that was weird.
I think he was working for the magazine, but I don't know. To me, I don't know if you guys felt the same way, but maybe it's because a lot of the wrestlers, he said, are dead from his era, but they didn't have a lot of people that actually worked with him. Like, Paul Heyman didn't work with him, did he? I don't think Paul Heyman ever had any contact with him. Did you pick up on that?
No, I didn't, but it's interesting that you make that point. I didn't think of that. But it's true. Yeah, there really wasn't. Now, I don't know if maybe that, who knows, maybe that was this particular director or producer's direction they wanted to go in. They wanted to get people not outside of the industry, but like, not wrestlers, because they didn't have one wrestler then, really, when I think about it. That's
what I was saying. I don't think there was one actual wrestler on the documentary.
So either nobody wanted to say anything about him, or
I don't think a lot of people like him. I mean,
that's evident.
You know, Vince talked about him, but that was in Shane, but that, you know, wasn't really anybody else.
Right.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I know you guys knew I was gonna say this, but my controversial take is I think Ultimate Warrior is one of the most overrated wrestlers of all time. Nick, I know he was your first hero growing up, but I mean, does that hold true to you today? Are you that big of a fan of his now as an adult as you were when you were however old you were when you first started liking him, started getting into wrestling?
Well, yeah, I am. I don't think I was the only one. If you listen to the crowd at WrestleMania 30, I mean, they certainly could have stood all over him, and they didn't. You know, they cheered him, they chanted for him, and when he came out on Raw the next night, they cheered him again, and so did I. But I guess it depends on the criteria of what you mean by, you know, overrated. I don't consider him overrated. Is he, you know, one of the great champions of all time? No, of course not. But, he's had some memorable matches. He's had some memorable feuds. I don't know. Are you saying most overrated champion or most overrated wrestler?
I don't know. I guess I'm saying champion, but I mean, I know Great Khali is a former WWE champion, so he's definitely better than Great Khali. But I don't know, something because Warrior just I don't know. I mean, his first match over 3 minutes, I think, was against Hogan, wasn't it? At WrestleMania 6. I think prior to that, he had never gone more than like 4 minutes. I read something like that, and I think it was a reason why he only went 4 minutes is because the guy couldn't go in the ring. I know a lot of those guys in that era couldn't, but he just.
So who do you think's average match length is longer, Warriors or Goldberg's?
Yeah, but Goldberg, that was part of the gimmick, though.
Well, I mean, the guy came out in face paint, running down to the ring with heart, bumping music, and had the power of the Warriors, looked possessed, like he had, needed an exorcist. So I'm not sure.
So you're saying it was part of the gimmick, you think? That he was designed to only have 3 to 4 minute matches?
Yeah, I think that was. I mean, that. So I'm going to say this. I'm not going to say that he's overrated. I don't think he's overrated, but I don't think you put him in the same context as guys like, Ric Flair and Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels and, Stone Cold and, those guys, even Hogan, because Hogan wasn't a great wrestler, but he wasn't terrible either. Hogan had good matches, but Warrior's gimmick wasn't about good matches. Warrior's gimmick, just like Goldberg's, which made it work, was wham bam, do the splash, do the press, his character was running down to the ring, shaking the ropes, and people just wanted to see him take somebody down. They weren't expecting and wanting a 5-star classic with Warrior. He had a couple really good matches, whether they were because of him or not is a different story.
You brought up a good point real quick, Fred. I think we all know why Miguel thinks that he's overrated. And you mentioned, quick squash matches. And let me paint a picture and take you back to WrestleMania 12 in Anaheim, California, where the Ultimate Warrior met up against the Cerebral Assassin, the King of Kings, Triple H. And I forget how it ended. I just remember going to the bathroom and coming back down and the match was over. But I don't remember how it ended. Miguel, I don't know if you could shed some light onto how that match ended.
I don't know what loss was worse, that or Triple H was in the JR on Raw that one time.
Oh, that's right. That's right, at the Garden.
Oh, God.
Well, what do you think about, Fred, I'm interested in your opinion too on this, but what do you guys think? I mean, there's a lot of people that think, that Triple H is overrated. And Jim Cornette's come out and said he's the guy that fights the guy that draws the money. He's been a big time champion. He's, super popular to Miguel. But where do you rank Triple H in terms of most overrated champions?
You're not going to get a good answer from Fred. I think Triple H is Fred's second favorite wrestler.
Yeah. I don't think Triple H is overrated at all. I think people say he's overrated because of his position.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that Triple H was a phenomenal wrestler. Phenomenal. With that being said, no, but you're right. What Jim Cornette said about his job was to put over the guy that was drawing. But, okay, he was a heel majority of his career. But you need a great heel to have a great babyface. So Stone Cold needed Triple H. Rock needed Triple H.
Mick Foley.
Right. So I don't think, he was never like the guy. Like Triple H was never like the Stone Cold or the Rock or Cena or Hogan. He was never the man, but he was always up against the guys that were the man. And you needed him just as much as you needed The Rock, just as much as you needed Stone Cold. So I don't think he's overrated at all. He was so good at what he did that you wanted to see him get his ass kicked by Stone Cold and The Rock and Mick Foley. And he was a great worker. You can't deny him having a great match.
Looking in a different angle. So he obviously has had some great matches. He obviously has had some memorable moments. He's also a guy whose win-loss record at WrestleMania isn't great, and I know it's predetermined and all that good stuff. His win-loss record in big matches isn't great.
Yeah, I don't think that.
His
job was to put over the big guys.
Which is fair. But he also, I would say, without fact checking, but you guys can fact check me at home, I think 90 to 95% of his WrestleMania matches were the longest match at that particular WrestleMania. And I think that in a lot of cases, you can make the argument that he would have been undeserving for the longest match of the night. Yet, his matches tend to be the longest of the night. So you're talking about Ronda Rousey and Kurt Angle against Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. Was it an entertaining match? Sure, it was.
It was the best match of the night.
Yeah.
It shouldn't have been as long as it was. And I think you could say that about a lot of Triple H's matches, whether it be him and Batista the second time at WrestleMania. There's a lot of his matches that I think go on a little bit too long. And I don't think, sure, he's very high up in the company, so he's going to have some people that shit on him just because of that.
Yeah.
Whenever you're successful, you're going to have people kind of trying to knock you down. That's just the world we live in. But I think he puts himself in position to be this top guy that he is not. And I don't even think close. So if you peel back to what the true definition is of overrated, I think you can make an argument that he's overrated. It doesn't mean that he's not good. It doesn't mean that he's not a Hall of Famer, a 3-time Hall of Famer when it's all said and done. But he's not as good as he thinks he is. I don't think he's as good as Miguel thinks he is. And it sounds like I don't think he's as good as, you, Fred, think he is.
Well, your opinion is
good, but he's not great
on this. Your opinion is we can agree to disagree on this.
I wouldn't say so. I could see your point that he, I could see your points. Did he need to have long? Does every match he need to be a long match? No, but usually his matches that he had were like the biggest match on WrestleMania that year.
Best match. 90% of them were the best match of the night. I mean,
if you look at every match he's been in from 27 to 35, he's probably been in the best match of the night.
Yeah.
27, him and Taker. I mean, obviously him and Taker, and then end of an era, of course. 29. All right, him and Lesnar wasn't the best. CM Punk and Taker was best match of the night, but it was a
30 was probably the second best match of the night. The triple threat match, and obviously,
I think you had the excitement of Bryan winning, but I think from a match standpoint, I think their match was actually like a wrestling match. Their match was actually better. 31 best match on the card was Triple H Sting.
But at that point, he was putting the guys over that he should have put over. Let's not forget that he should have lost to CM Punk in 2011 at Night of Champions.
Yes, I agree with that. That's fair.
To Sting at WrestleMania 31. He should have lost to Sting at WrestleMania 31.
Okay. We spoke about this on a previous podcast. I agree. Sting should have won that. But the reason he didn't was because they were setting up him and Rock for next year that never ended up happening, and they had that promo segment later on in the night. That's the only reason he won that.
I disagree. You can have The Rock and Triple H at any WrestleMania, and it's going to be.
Are you going to have Triple H just now? It still wouldn't have made sense to have that segment first and then the match. But if they wanted to, I guess they could. But it wouldn't have been the same for Triple H to have lost a huge WrestleMania match and then do this thing with The Rock 20 minutes later, an hour later, whatever.
There was no continuity to any of that. So he hits Sting with a sledgehammer, clearly a heel move. Then 5 minutes later, he's shaking the hands of Sting. Then he comes back out to cut a heel promo. But to your point on that, it's the dialogue throughout the match. I mean, how many times does JBL need to bury WCW in that match? It's the dialogue. It's the way the match was constructed, and I'm clearly not the only one that feels that way.
That's what they get for getting bought by them. That's how I feel.
Well, right, but that's fine. But
they write the history. They bought them. They own them now.
Arn Anderson said the same thing and agrees with me. Arn Anderson.
On
his podcast when he
fuck him too. I listen to his podcast. I do listen to his podcast.
He's not the friendliest guy if you ever met him.
I met him once at a rest stop coming home from a Raw in Philly. And I met him, Shelton, and somebody else, I forget. And he signed for me.
That's cool.
I only had a pen on me, so but I have his autograph. Yeah.
Would you have on your forehead? What the fuck were you carrying at a rest stop?
What'd you say?
I said, what'd you have him sign? Your fucking forehead?
Oh, my program.
I hear.
I had the program.
For what, a Raw?
Yeah. Like I must have bought the program that night. I always buy the most current program.
You needed reading material at the rest stop.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I walked in there. I was like, "Holy shit!" So I ran back to the car, got the program out of the car, and went back.
I met him with Tim, and he was just like, "All right, put up the 4." And we did it. I don't think he smiled one time. I don't think we asked him any questions, and that was it.
That was it. Let's get back to the Warrior, though. Let's finish this topic because we can go all day on Triple H.
Triple H is overrated, but continue.
You're overrated. All right, you are overrated. If you guys agree with me, tweet me. And Miguel is right. Nick is overrated from Mark's side of the ring. But all jokes aside, I believe Ultimate Warrior maybe top 3 most overrated WWE champions in history. Great Khali is the most overrated.
But I don't think he's rated at all. So.
Well, yeah, by default he is. And honestly, I don't even know who I would put at number 2. Maybe him. He might be the second most overrated WWE champion.
That's a bold statement right there. That's big.
I'd have to go back and look at every champion ever.
Did Justice?
Who?
Did Justice? Psycho Sid?
I don't know. Yeah, I guess. He's pretty bad too. So, but speaking of the most overrated, we also heard this past week on Grillin' JR. Tried to do our best friend Conrad, former guest of the show as well.
Oh, Connie, my boy.
All right. Well, we're trying to do a little impersonation.
That's JR doing
Connie, my boy.
Jim Barnett there.
Shout out to Conrad Thompson, former guest of the show here. But
I gotta rein you guys in.
But on Grillin' JR, JR made what would come to be as a semi-controversial comment where he said that he thinks Randy Orton is the absolute best in the business right now. Nick, you agree with that statement? And were you shocked when you heard JR say that, knowing that he works with Kenny Omega and AEW?
Oh, for God's sake.
Oh my God!
I'm gonna need a glass of wine for this
I'm not shocked that anybody that thinks that Randy Orton, those old timers think that Randy Orton, because Randy Orton has like a very old time style to him. Like if Randy Orton was a wrestler in 1990, 91, 92, he would be like super, super over. Probably the greatest heel that era had. But I just think he fights in a style where, I mean, if you listen to the crowd and you listen to the "This is awesome" chants and stuff like that, it's usually after a triple, Hurricanrana, Senton.
The problem with today's wrestling.
Spintail or whatever. So there's, those get the "This is awesome" chants. So with Randy Orton, stomping people, RKOs, the DDT that he does, the quick slam. He's kind of, I could see him being a kind of boring wrestler in the eyes of some people. And sometimes he bores me with some of his matches. I mean, whether it be him and Sheamus and stuff, I could take or leave. But I think that Randy Orton's psychology in the ring and everything, his facial expressions, the things that he does, like the little things, I do kind of think set him apart from everybody else. And, truth be told, even before I thought the Bray Wyatt, Randy Orton feud got a little stale, and we know how the ending was, but I thought the beginning part of that and everything was really, really good. So I do think that while he's not the best wrestler to me right now, I can understand why people like JR, and he's not the only one. I remember reading way back, Eric Bischoff, might have been like while he was in TNA, but he did an interview where he was like, if you can take one wrestler from, what would the top 5 wrestlers be that you would take over? And he said Randy Orton, Randy Orton, Randy Orton, Randy Orton, and Randy Orton. So, I know Bischoff loves him a lot.
JBL's always said.
Yeah, I think he's really, really good. I just think in this day and age, fans aren't gonna, think that because he fights a boring style of match.
Fred, you think that JR's right when he says Randy Orton is the absolute best in the business right now?
I mean, listen, the absolute best is subjective, right? So there's no right or wrong answer. Whatever you think or whoever you think is the best is who you think is the best. But I don't think you can deny that from an overall performer standpoint, and longevity, in-ring capability, promo skills, having your character down pat, selling everything, every aspect of the business. I don't see how you can't put Randy Orton in that place. I'm not saying that he has the most exciting matches of the night, but that, like I said when Nick was talking about it before, I said that's the problem with today's wrestling is like, don't get me wrong, I love that stuff and I love fast paced and crazy moves. I'm not saying I don't like that crap. I like the old. No, I like that stuff. And I pop for it, but I appreciate the actual wrestling that Randy Orton gives you, and that's what sets him apart too. Is that he's giving you something different. And in today's landscape, it's getting to be more and more different, right? I think if you look at Randy Orton from 10 to 15 years ago, while he always had the same style, it was kind of like pretty generic, like run, but as time has gone on, it's kind of like set himself apart from everybody because he's stayed, in that area of being a classic wrestler, methodical. And I just think as an overall package, you're not going to hear an argument from me against it that he's not. You could say somebody that may be a better wrestler, but as far as overall, I think Randy Orton is the greatest.
What do you guys think when Matt Hardy almost immediately tweeted that he disagrees with JR and said Kenny Omega's
I for God's sake, kiss my ass, Kenny Omega. Until he works in a WWE ring, I don't care what anybody says, he will not be on the level of any of those guys. I'm sorry. It's just facts.
I agree with you 100%. We probably have some AEW fans out there.
Shocking that you guys agree on it.
What?
I said it's shocking that you guys agree on it.
I don't understand how. I'm not. Again, he's a great wrestler. I'm not discrediting Kenny Omega at all. But as far as being like an overall like top performer, I don't feel like you can even rightfully put Kenny Omega in the conversation because he's only worked for New Japan and AEW. That's like putting a football player in a conversation as the greatest of all time that has never played in the NFL. He may be the greatest football player of all time, but until he's played for an NFL team, I don't think his name belongs in a conversation. You could have a baseball player that may be the greatest baseball player in the history of baseball, okay? But until he plays for the major leagues, until he's in the MLB, his name is irrelevant. This could be said for any major sport, and it's the same thing with pro wrestling.
I love that analogy, Fred, but I want to get Nick's take on that. What do you think of what Fred just said? Do you agree with that? Is it a fair analogy?
I think Fred telegraphed the fact that he feels like in order to be the best, you have to have a platform to be the best.
You do. To be in a conversation, you have to be on the biggest stage.
So if you have a match on the biggest stage, the WWE stage, but it's not a great match or by any means that you don't consider that person to be one of the top elite wrestlers of all time?
Wait, say that again?
I'm saying, so for like a guy like Sting's had what, 2 matches for WWE?
Right.
But I think there's a lot of people that would consider him one of the greats. I'm not saying the greatest, but one of the greats. But he was in WWE, so he meets that criteria, but none of his matches were very good. I mean...
No, but again, I look at Sting differently just based on those 2 matches he had in WWE. The fact that he actually wrestled in the WWE ring, I put Sting now in a different category that I didn't prior. So Sting was one of the greatest of all time. But
you would agree that his matches weren't good in WWE?
No, I wouldn't. I thought the match at WrestleMania was great, outcome notwithstanding. I thought that match was excellent. And his match with Sting, with Seth Rollins was great until the unfortunate ending. But they were having a great match. So
you weren't going to put Sting as one of the greatest until he stepped foot in the WWE ring?
No, my thing about Sting was always, but he never worked for WWE.
I don't know. I think Sting's the anomaly. Normally, I would agree, but I think Sting's one of the greatest because of his matches that were not.
I'm not saying he wasn't one of the greatest, but I wouldn't put him. And again, listen, the WWE Hall of Fame, they induct people that didn't work for the WWE. By the time Sting got inducted, he had his 2 matches, whatever. But they could have and would have inducted him even if he didn't have those matches, right? So that, that is what it is. But I just feel like until you have wrestled for the biggest company, I mean, yeah, Sting's a little different because he was on top of organizations for 20 years. I don't count his TNA stuff, though, because to me, that's not being on the top of anything. But he was on top of WCW for a long time and the NWA prior to that for a little bit before.
Yeah, it's probably not fair to put.
So it's a different situation.
Right, because Kenny's only been on television for 2 years, not even 2 years yet, right?
Right.
So maybe if this was 10, 15 years later, and if Kenny was still performing at the high level that he is today, then maybe it's fair to kind of assess that same conversation as we are with Sting. But, you got to remember, as you just mentioned, Sting was on top for 10 years.
Right.
Over that in WCW.
Yeah. So, I mean, don't forget, too, Sting was a big star in WCW when WCW was the hottest thing going. Yeah, he was on top for years prior when they weren't really doing great at all as the Surfer character. But I think he really made a name for himself as far as a long-standing and everlasting legacy when he turned into that Crow character and the whole angle with the NWO and all that. That's what I really think solidified Sting as a, Hall of Famer, was that run.
Nick, who do you think is the best wrestler right now in the world?
Active?
Yeah, right now.
Active, I probably would go with Roman Reigns. My criteria is pretty simple. They have to be somebody I want to tune in to watch at this point. And the only person who I want to tune in to watch is Roman Reigns. So I would consider him. I don't think,
Roman is obviously a fair, yeah.
If AEW was doing something where, there was something going on that I really wanted to see every single week, then I don't agree with Fred in the sense that I think they have to be a WWE superstar or a former WWE superstar or any of that kind of stuff. It's what draws my attention in and makes me want to watch would be the guy that I would consider the best right now. And right now that's Roman Reigns. So he would be my guy, but I don't agree with the platform thing. I think that anybody could be the best. And
does Randy Orton not make you want to watch? Does he not excite you?
In certain aspects, he excites me. I mean, I like I said, I liked the feud with Bray Wyatt until it got a little carried away. He's had some feuds in the past. His feuds with Edge, I thought, were really, really good. And he's had some feuds in the past, further down the line that I thought were pretty entertaining. His feuds with Cena, I always thought were pretty good. His feuds with Jericho, I liked. So I think he's had some matches with people that are entertaining, but I also think he's very capable based on his style of putting up a dud. And, the loudest crowd that I've ever been to was the post-Mania crowd. And I feel like that was really when it first kind of started and everybody kind of talked about the post-Mania crowd. And it really started by them really hijacking the show when Randy Orton was fighting Sheamus because there was a match that nobody wanted to watch. And they felt like both wrestlers were boring, and that's why they hijacked the show. So I think there are people that think that he's boring. I guess different strokes for different folks.
Do you like this stuff he's doing with Riddle right now, the RK Bro story?
I think it's entertaining, and I take back the stuff that I said with Riddle. He's kind of funny in this role with Randy Orton. It obviously is going to lead to a feud between the two, which I think will be entertaining because Riddle, I think, could sell really well and can do a lot of entertaining things in the ring. My gripes with Riddle had nothing to do with his in-ring work, so I think it's entertaining so far. It's kind of like the puppy dog and the old time dog that's just annoyed by the puppy all the time. It's kind of what it reminds me of.
I think it's really the only great part of Monday Night Raw, to be honest. It's the only part that I actually look forward to and enjoy. There's other things that are not bad. Oh, that wasn't bad. That was pretty good. Or, that's the only I can't wait for Riddle and Orton tonight.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like Nick is a believer in Riddle after bashing him for 38, 39 episodes, 39 weeks straight, on and off. It looks like Nick has finally come on the Riddle train. Is that true, Nick?
No, and don't call it the Riddle train. But I and don't do that. But
We'll never do that.
no, like I said, my gripes were never with his in-ring work. I think his theme is stupid. I think the carried out bro is stupid. I think there's stupid things about his gimmick. I think his the names of his moves are stupid. But do I think he's entertaining? Yeah, he's entertaining.
Okay. All right. Well, it's a fun little debate to kind of talk about. Too bad we don't have Tim on here because Tim would probably argue that Kenny Omega is the best right now. But I would love to see Fred go at it passionately with Tim about Kenny versus Roman Reigns. I think I agree with you, Nick. I think Roman right now is the best in the business. I don't think there's any question about it. But because the criteria for me is simple too. It's who is must-see television right now. I'm a fan of Kenny Omega. I enjoy tuning in on Wednesdays or now Fridays when he's on my television. But the real Friday is reserved for the Tribal Chief, the head of the table. That's just my 2 cents on it. But I think I agree with John Cena. Just one more point. That's why I asked if it was active wrestlers, because if Brock Lesnar was involved, then to me Brock Lesnar would be the best wrestler going on right now. And I know his matches are sort of boring, but there's nobody in professional wrestling more must see than Brock Lesnar. I agree with that, man. I'd probably say Brock's my second favorite of all.
Really good.
His match is like you believe like this is fucking real.
Yeah, every time.
And you never know what you're gonna get.
Yeah. His matches have a very shoot feel to them, and I love it. And big match feel, all of them.
The Orton thing with the elbows, the fight with Cena, even his fights with Triple H, the Triple H's career on the line match.
Mm-hmm.
WrestleMania 29, which I'm sure was the longest match of that WrestleMania. I think that match was super entertaining and had a real, big fight feel to it. I don't think it broke Shawn's nose, but I think he popped Shawn.
You know what Brock match I just watched actually yesterday, back I haven't seen in a while, was Brock Taker, the 2015 Hell in the Cell. And
also very good.
Great match. And what I love about that too is, talk about believable. How about when the doctor's trying to patch up Brock Lesnar and Lesnar just shoves him and the referee goes flying, right? I don't know if Lesnar put his full might into that, but that ref goes boom,
flying,
and just flies across the ring, because Lesnar's portrayal is that he's just this loose cannon animal, right? Mm-hmm. He's definitely the most box office guy in the history of pro wrestling, I'd say.
100%. I hope he's back for SummerSlam.
I hope so too. He's
him and Lashley, man, or him and McIntyre, or a triple threat. I don't care.
Him or anybody, dude. Honestly, him and anybody. I'll take him and anybody. He is absolutely must-see television, and I get super excited when he's on any pay-per-view.
Yep.
As Paul says, Brock doesn't fight on free TV, so except when he beats Kofi Kingston on SmackDown in 6 seconds for the
win. that was
that's another topic for another day. But I wanted to touch on really quick. We talked about Sting a little bit earlier. Fred, use him as an example.
Yeah.
Sting's going to be having his first match this Sunday for Double or Nothing. His first in front of a live crowd match since the Seth Rollins match in 2015. So it's been almost 6 years now. I think it was September 2015 he had his last match. Mm-hmm. What do you guys think? Are you excited for this? Do you think it's a good call for him to go live? Because the only other match he's had was the cinematic match. Right. So are you looking forward to this? I know you're both Sting fans, but do you think it's the right move to put him? And if so, how much involvement is he going to have with a live crowd, you think?
So I'm very excited for it, to be honest. I think that's awesome. Concerned. Also, one of the things I'm feeling, I don't know if it's a right call. We won't know if it was a right call until the match is over. I hope for his sake he's okay, and at the same time, I don't think he should be doing too much. I think his capacity should be limited, in what he does.
Do you expect Darby to go like 80 to 85% of the match?
I do, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And, I'm sure people will complain. Well, maybe they won't because it's AEW, but, that's how it should be. have Darby be the guy to get the shine, and then Sting comes in, does his thing, gets his shit in, as the old saying goes, and probably get the pin or whatever. They may even let Darby get the pin. I don't know. But it was funny. What's his name? Scorpio Sky said that one of his good friends in WWE texted him and said, "Please don't hurt Sting." It was he was like one of his favorite wrestlers growing up. So I'm curious who that was that's an active WWE guy right now that texted Scorpio Sky that, but kind of funny.
Nick, what are your thoughts on this Sting match? Do you think it's the right move?
Yeah, I think it's fine. I think everything Fred said is accurate. The only other thing that I would be worried about, or that I am worried about, is that, I was super excited when Bret Hart made his return, and it inevitably led to his match with Vince McMahon at WrestleMania, and I was excited to see him in the ring, but the product wasn't very good at all. I mean, he couldn't get hit in the head. You could tell it was a shell of his former self, and that's what I would be worried about, besides his own safety, is that they use Sting in a way where it's like Sting light, and it's just not good. So I would rather just not see it at all if that's what we're going to see. But I'm hoping that we see a lot more from him than we did Bret Hart in his return. But we'll see what happens.
You think this could lead to more matches for Sting in the future? And if so, you think they're going to be tag matches, or do you think maybe this is like his true last match?
Well, I think it'll depend on how it goes Sunday. Have they built it? Is the talk that this may be his last match?
I haven't heard that, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. They haven't built it as his last match.
But I wouldn't make this tag Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page. That's his last. That's terrible last match.
Kurt Angle's was against Baron Corbin.
True.
That was also
very good.
If you look at the guys that Kurt Angle has wrestled against, and then to find out that his last match is against Baron Corbin was to me kind of a letdown.
Speaking of that, did you guys hear Kurt talk about that on his podcast with Conrad or no?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah, he basically said, he wanted Cena. It didn't happen, and he kind of just rolled with the punches on it.
Well, because he said, if you want Cena, you got to, next year. But Kurt just wanted to end it because he realized he couldn't do what he did. So Vince said, if you want to retire, it's Corbin. That's where we're going. You've been involved in this storyline with him. So really, it was kind of Kurt's doing because he wanted to end it then.
Kurt's like one of the only guys I can think of, right, where he came to his senses and said, "I'm not what I used to be. I can't keep doing this."
Yeah.
Most guys, Vince is the one that says, "All right, this is it for you." Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And end up going somewhere else to keep wrestling. That's what happened to Flair. It's what happened now with Sting. So
it's a shame, all those years wasted in TNA, and he had great matches there that he could have had, in WWE, and because he said I was better in TNA than I was in WWE, because by the time he was in TNA, he was seasoned. He was at that level where he was untouchable. So it's a shame that the Kurt that came back. It was cool to see him in the ring. He had some good matches, but it's a shame that it wasn't the Kurt of yesteryear.
I think his match when he came back, I know we talked about it earlier, him and Ronda versus Triple H, Stephanie was his best match when he came back.
Probably, yeah. Again, a lot of that had to do with Ronda and
Hunter.
And I thought the first match he had back that was a shock was the Shield match, which was great. Kurt looked great in that. Again, it was a 6-man tag, though. So, he was able to kind of be covered up in it. But, so he had some good matches. And I think it was cool on the way out. He did that little tour kind of thing, worked Samoa Joe, worked AJ Styles, Chad Gable, all the guys he wanted to work with, he got to work with on the Raws and SmackDowns leading up. So that was kind of cool.
Last question around, are you both gonna? Well, Fred, I know you might be coming over for it, but Nick, you gonna be watching Double or Nothing on Sunday? You plan on ordering it?
Probably not, but not because I don't want to. Just because. And when you work in the liquor business, and it's Memorial Day weekend, and we live in New Jersey, and the mask mandate is coming off on the 28th, right in time for Memorial Day weekend. I think I'm just going to be too preoccupied with work to really do anything else.
That's true. Well, we'll have to fill you in, Nick. Maybe we'll send you some videos if we end up ordering it. But Nick, we appreciate the time. We know you're a busy man, my friend, and I'm trying to make you feel honored for being on the show. Nick, since you are, of course, the special guest of the week, why don't you go ahead and plug some stuff away for us, buddy, like we do before we always sign off here. I'll let you do the honors this week.
Well, you can get all our merch at TruExactRadio.com. I know TruExact Radio is doing a bunch of Scott's personal show is doing a lot of Shark Week stuff. So tune in for that. If you're a Shark fan, you got Shark Bets and Fantasy Sets. We're getting settled into really football. Talking about some best bets, MVP futures, Super Bowl futures, and all that good stuff. Even some way too early week 1 bets. Miguel, I took Denver, spoiler alert on that show against the Giants week 1. But we appreciate you guys tuning in and checking out the show. Always appreciate the feedback. You can always get to us at Mark's Side of the Ring. That's all I got.
Well, guys, yes, great job. As always, catch all of our shows on the TruExact Radio platforms, anywhere you get your podcasts. We'll see you back next week for another exciting episode of Mark's Side of the Ring. Thanks, boys.
Take care.